Hey, this is Ken Casey from the Dropkick Murphys, and I love the Grandstanders! Take it away, kid.
National.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Which is, I think, a 9-story building. Two interesting points. First, people of color couldn't step foot in the Hotel Nacional prior to Castro. And secondly, it was the place where the mafia had their annual meeting.
So this was
Because they couldn't have them.
Godfather kind of stuff,
they'd
right?
They'd be arrested,
Yeah.
right? And I remember Kitty and I speculating, I think we were on the 7th or 8th floor, and the mafia were the top 6 for one of their conventions. What mobster had occupied our
Oh, yeah.
place? You know?
Take your pick.
Yeah, right.
Lucky Luciano.
But and Cuba did not abolish slavery, Scott. I don't think until 1886, maybe.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That late.
Later than
Later than our own.
the
For
Civil
sure.
War.
Yeah.
Right.
And strictly, segregationist, the whole thing. And if you go down there, I mean, it's a country with, as they say, 2/3
Yeah.
of folks that are of African descent.
Yeah.
So 1946 obviously had a lot of great stars, of course, being Ted Williams being on that team. But start looking at the Boston Red Sox right now, and we have a lot of big stars. When you start talking about Mookie Betts, J.D. Martinez, Craig Kimbrell, Chris
Rockhold,
Sale,
Xander.
this is a team similar to 46 where you got big names.
But
Young-
look at the team. Look at their backgrounds.
Yeah.
The color of their skin, where they came from, their level of education. Nothing against the old guy, but these folks, half of them are college graduates.
Yeah. Jackie Bradley went to South Carolina, right? J.D.
Yeah.
Martinez, he
The
got out of
manager
school.
graduated of the University of Miami,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's a very different world.
J.D.
And a better
Martinez, is he must watch up at Bats View when Russ says he won't leave the TV when J.D. Martinez comes up to play?
Where did he come from?
It's unbelievable.
Right.
But Cuban American
That's right.
from Miami,
Yeah.
right?
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a very different place.
Yeah. There's, we think about the team that broke the curse in 2004, and they dubbed themselves the Idiots. This team has a very different feel. These are educated people, very sort of diverse group. There are no knuckleheads on this
And
team.
great
seem very
students of the
professional.
game.
And great students of the
Right.
game, right?
I only get this, the way we all do, but
Sure.
apparently Martinez spends an enormous amount of time just studying his hitting, looking at film, all this kind of stuff.
And helping the other players. We're one of the, I think our show, we've always pulled for Jackie Bradley Jr. That's a
Yeah.
guy you root for. And, he can be but to read the thing last week where, he credits J.D. Martinez as much as anyone as just putting his arm around him
Yeah.
and going through video. That's a remarkable skill.
And what about Bradley?
Oh,
I mean-
amazing. That catch the other night.
I don't want to
Oh.
say I don't care what he's batting,
Yeah.
Well, that's what everybody's saying, though.
and he's certainly doing a heck of a lot better. But how does he do that stuff?
I think he took off before the pitch even got to the plate. He
You
was
know,
on full.
he
was
he
at
says
full
he
gallop.
he does this thing. I think he's running geometry in his head. He just runs to where he think the ball's going to be when it,
And he's there.
and he's there.
What are you doing?
The only way you can get there is if you put your head down and sprint to where you think the ball's going to land.
No, Joe DiMaggio, was his
Was that what he
reputation,
did?
that he would
Yeah.
turn around,
Yeah.
turn back when the ball was...
But isn't this guy one of the best outfielders?
Well, I
you've
was
ever
going to say,
seen?
is he the best defensive center fielder
Best I've
we've
ever
ever seen?
I think so.
Guys,
Well, the
he's
Red
got it
Sox,
there.
right?
Well,
Would you
maybe
Of
agree?
course, the guy who did it
Yeah.
in my
Defensively.
youth was Dominic.
Dom DiMaggio, right? Yeah.
Pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Was he fast?
He covered that field. I
Yeah.
don't know, he was faster. He got there.
Yeah.
No,
But Governor, we struggle with JBJ. We come on the show sometimes and we
he's
rip him, and we're
he's
like,
not hitting
he's on the
200.
wherever we can ship him out to, because it's frustrating when he's up at the plate.
The other night, bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth. Strike.
But he's streaky. He's done it again. You know, you write him off and you say maybe he's a 200 hitter, and then he's been hit over 300 for the last, I don't know, 30 games.
And then when he hits sharp too.
Yeah, he does.
And are we watching a Willie Mays type in Mookie Betts? It feels like it, doesn't? Not that I saw Willie Mays play.
version.
I'm not sure there's a Willie Mays type.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
there's only one Willie Mays, right?
Right. So would you consider Willie Mays? A lot of people talk to as the greatest all-around ball player of all time.
Pretty close.
Did you get to see him a lot?
Not that much.
Yeah.
You know, the guy that Betts reminds me of just because of how he hits is, Henry Aaron had incredibly strong wrists. And he was a small guy. Henry Aaron's, I don't know, 5'10", 5'11",
Bat
right?
speed.
And Mookie, pound for pound, he's got to have
Doesn't look like a
amazingly,
power.
What does Mookie weigh? 170 maybe?
if that. I mean, I think he's 5'10", 5'11", 175 pounds.
Remarkable.
He was a second baseman.
And a good one.
And a really good one.
In fact, when Pedroia went down, they were thinking maybe they'd put him at second base. So, David Price, another guy that we come on this show, and sometimes we're not...
him a hard time.
Yeah. What do you think of it? Do you think he has the right personality for this town? And nobody knows this town better than you do.
Look, he's an interesting fellow, but I think it's good to have a guy like Price on that team. He's different.
He's not
Kinda-
conforming.
Huh?
Another educated guy, Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah.
But he has rabbit ears. He hears too
Yes.
much, right?
You think?
Yeah. I mean, in the political world, were there guys
Yeah,
like
this
that
is-
who heard everything?
This is a tough, I mean, if you
Donald
don't,
Trump.
with all due respect to all of us who comment on this, and especially those of us who get on the air and do so, you have to turn it off to some extent. I mean, I don't see, it's a little bit like politics, If you listen to the talk shows and you're in public office, you'd go crazy. So
Exactly.
you really have to kind of turn it off.
How would you pick up when you were trying to get a read on how people are feeling about things? I mean, you took the green line, you walked. I mean, you had your ear to the ground because you were on the ground.
Yeah.
How did you pick up how people were feeling? You had pollsters, but were there other things that you did?
Polling is important.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kid yourself a lot. Yes, governor, hi, governor. I'll
Sure.
never forget, I don't know if I've ever told you guys this story, but when I decided I was going to ride the streetcar to work, which I'd been doing, Kitty and I since we were 5, right, on the old wooden streetcars, right? So it was nothing new for me. You can't do that, this, that, and the other thing. I said, look, I'm not having security, and I'm riding the streetcar. And the first month, this was in January of 75, hey, Governor, nice to see you, this, that, and the other thing. The state was in terrible, terrible shape. Second highest unemployment rate in the country. I mean, we were just wallowing around. It was just awful. So the first month was kind of pleasant. But the streetcars, and you remember the old PCCs? They'd been made in 1942, and they were still using them.
The old rattlers.
Yeah.
They'd throw you in the aisle, when you went around.
Are they still using them somewhere, probably,
Well,
right?
out on the Mattapan line.
Right.
They're kind of vintage cars.
Yeah,
Right,
right. That's
People
right.
don't want to get rid of them. I mean, they want
They've
them
got that
kept.
look, right?
Anyway, second month, it's not so warm. The reception, I mean. It's damn cold.
Honeymoon's over.
Because these streetcars are breaking down twice a week.
Oh.
Interesting.
I mean, it was would you get to work on time or not? That was the question, right?
Right.
So the atmosphere isn't quite as loving. And finally, about 2 weeks into February, I said, hell with this. I went up to the motorman and I said, what the hell is going on here? He said, they're not replacing the pans. I said, the what? He said, the pans. I said, what's a pan? He said, it's a piece of metal that's bolted under the works and protects all of that stuff from snow and ice. And I said, they're not replacing them? I said, that's right. I got to the state house. I picked up the phone. I called Fred Salvucci, who was 6 weeks into the secretary's job. Terrific guy. Fantastic guy. Anyway, I said, Fred, I have it on very good authority that they're not replacing the pans. The reason we're breaking down, and he used to take the streetcar from Brighton, is that they're not replacing the pans.
Yeah.
He cheated. They couldn't be. He said, I'll call you back. Calls me back in 2 hours. He says, the guy's right. They're not the pans. So we replaced the
good.
pans and the breakdown stuff. You know,
That's
ask
great.
the
That's quite a
folks.
concept.
Ask the folks that are working for you what's wrong.
What's wrong? Right.
Wow.
That's it.
Had that happened in January of 2015,
Right. Things might have been different.
Yeah.
the folks on the system would have said, when you have a terrible storm, the first thing you do is run the trains 24 hours a day,
That's
with or without people, because if you don't,
Can't
you'll
build
get
up.
drifting, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it.
Learned that in
All they
78,
had to
right?
do was ask
Yeah.
the folks in the system, and they would have said, run the trains 24 hours a day. You know? I mean, when we, you remember the
what we
blizzard of
used to do.
78, we never lost a minute of service during the blizzard of 78.
So the T ran the whole time in 78.
All the time.
I didn't know
Why?
that.
Well, I had some great people who knew what they were doing, but I was so upset about what happened in 2015. I called Dave Gunn, who was the chief of operations at the T during the blizzard of 78, went on to run the 4 biggest transit systems in North America, and then when I got on the Amtrak board, he became the CEO. He was one of the best trained transit people in America. Melrose kid originally. And I called him, I said, Dave, you know, we never lost a minute of service during the blizzard of 78. How'd you do it? He said, you really want to know? I said, yeah. He said, we ran the trains 24 hours a day. And we hired 300 guys at $5 an hour. This was in the 70s. And gave them shovels and told them to shovel.
Did you get a piece of that action in the 70s?
I did have a little piece of that. And everyone went right in the
And it was
ladders.
very interesting. Tom,
Thanks for your help.
I was telling this story outside the Transportation Department office one day. And Tom Timlin, who was the Secretary of Transportation, or maybe the Highway Commissioner, kid originally from South Boston. He was there. He said, I was one of those kids.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Red Sox managers in your fandom, were there one or two that you just stood out to you as?
Well, this guy stands up.
He does.
Yeah, no
You
question
like
about
John Farrell.
it. I like Farrell too,
Yeah.
but
This guy's special.
But he kind of lost the clubhouse, wouldn't you think?
somewhat.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe there's a useful life to this. I mean, we'll see. You
Yeah.
know, how long? It's like college presidents. I mean, they may be great, but at some point, maybe
yeah.
it's time to move on.
But he'll have to
But-
cut his teeth core in the playoffs. We'll see.
but
That's
I-
when
yeah,
big
but
decisions
I
are made.
like Cora.
So, okay, baseball's, coming under fire, which they've got to make some corrections to the game, right? I mean, for the young people to keep them interested. And would you agree the 4-hour games have got to go?
I'm too much a traditional.
So you don't think anything should be changed
Back in the
whatsoever?
old days, the games were only 2 hours long.
Well, some things are happening.
Yeah.
I don't want to beat up on Joe Kelly, who, is, I think, a damn good pitcher who's just had, he goes into a slump.
Yeah.
He must take
It's brutal.
15 minutes between pitches.
Yeah.
I know. What is he doing?
I don't know.
All I want them to do is throw the ball. Just
Yeah.
get the ball back,
I mean,
get the sign and
yeah,
throw
One of
the
the great
ball.
things
Get
about
the ball, throw the
sales
ball.
is that he gets the ball, he throws
Yeah,
it. He gets the
it's
ball, he
so
throws
nice.
it. He gets the ball,
It's
he throws
amazing.
it.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you don't have to be that fast.
When
But
you-
you,
Strikeouts
so
are a
you'd be in
problem, too.
favor of a pitch clock.
Well, I'd be in favor of something that would
Yeah.
get these folks to speed up a little bit. On the other hand, if you go to a ball game, Scott, you got to expect to be there. I mean, this is not
No, I
football,
know.
it's not track.
No, it's
baseball.
not. I know. I know.
And most Red Sox fans are students of the game, and they're there to watch baseball.
For me, it's the pace. It's Sale. He gets it. He throws it. And if you get 2 of those pitchers in a game, even if the game's 3 hours long, you're seeing there's action, right? There's a good pace to it.
Pitch and catch. Pitch
And
Some
look,
of these relievers come in.
we saw 2 terrific pitchers for the Phillies this last couple.
Oh man, those guys
Yeah.
pitch so well.
I mean,
Right.
I'd heard of Arrieta. For some reason, I
The
hadn't
other
heard
guys.
of Nola.
Nola?
Also, yeah.
Holy
that curveball
smokes.
is unbelievable.
They were lucky to win that game
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Tuesday night.
They didn't win it over him.
No,
You know.
those guys pitch really well.
yeah.
You feel like the Red Sox offense may be the reason they don't win a World Series.
Really?
Yeah, it seems at times that they have big stretches where they're not scoring any runs, and if you have that in a 3 to 4,
They get some good pitching, they shut down. Against the mediocre guys, they are
mash.
awesome.
and how much fun will it be? Because the Yankees got big stars now too, to have a playoff series against the New York Yankees. We have not had that since 2004.
Yeah.
You know?
It's going to be fun.
And that was a doozy.
But look, you guys know this, anything can happen in the
Yeah.
playoffs. I mean, it's
Yeah, especially with this, the
all
prospect
bets
of
are
one game playing. I mean, that's like 1970. That's like 1978, right?
Were you
Like,
guys alive in '78?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure. I
that
remember
was
12
Bucky
years
Dent.
old. I'll never
man.
forget that.
Oh,
That was
Mike
painful.
Torres.
Swinging a pop-up.
Swinging a
Oh
pop.
my God. I still will never
So
get
you
over
were
that
in
game.
the you were in the governor's seat in obviously in '78, right? Did you feel when something, and back then you'd feel it in the entire city when the Red Sox would lose, you'd feel it. I remember '86, you felt it that next day.
well, I felt it in '78.
Were you and Kitty at that game?
That was a day game, wasn't
That
it?
was a day game, October
Yeah,
2nd.
78, yeah.
Look, I started when the state was in terrible shape.
Mhm.
And record high unemployment, all this stuff. And we worked our heads off. It wasn't easy. And by my 4th year, we were down to 5% unemployment.
Mhm.
You know, revenue was starting to flow again. We were starting to feel good about things and so forth. And I was 40 points ahead of Ed King in the polls with 5 weeks to go.
Which just happened to coincide with the
It
78
just
playoff
happened to
game.
coincide with the record, with the Red Sox being 14 games ahead,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I've not heard this story.
This is good.
And Dukakis and the Red Sox went down the drain
That's
together.
right. You lost to Ed King in '78, didn't you?
did.
And then you came back in '82.
Yeah. And
That's
it was the
crazy.
same year that they were 14 up and lost.
People were just pissed
So
off.
did the governor ever once in a while? So the governor would get Don Zimmer on the phone every once in a while and say, "What are you doing to us?"
The manager of the Red
So if
Sox.
the election had been in September, you would have won, but because it was in
No,
November.
but it was no, but it
people in a
was,
foul
it
mood.
was the primary at the time. This is before King
Yeah.
became a
Oh,
Republican.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that
So I had
right?
insult to injury.
Oh, right. I forgot that.
But, you know, 5 weeks ahead of the primary, I was 40 points ahead in the poll.
That's insane.
And I was watching the Red Sox decline.
Oh gosh.
And I was watching my numbers decline.
Take Butch Hobson out of there.
I've
Oh.
never forgotten that song.
Don Zimmer, I hated him. I hated that man that
Did you?
season so much.
Well, hate is a
All right, dislike greatly. You're right. You're right. Okay.
I think the pitching had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But
Right?
what makes this guy so likable as well as so effective?
Well, winning does a lot for your likability factor.
To be sure. But there is something about him.
I think so.
I think he's closer to the player's age.
I think that's right,
also.
Pete.
Yeah.
And he seems to have a feel for the players. Maybe it's age, maybe it's I don't know what.
Well, we
But-
talked about last week, the press conferences after the game are must-watch TV if you're a big fan. He's very open about what's happened during the game, what's happening with the players, injuries and stuff.
Yeah, you made the comparison to Doc Rivers because Doc was like that. You know,
Right.
he'd come
As
out
a coach,
after
yeah.
a loss.
Yeah.
And, well, but one thing that connects those two fellas is that they both did TV, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
prior
Cora
to.
did
That's
TV,
true.
and I guess you know what the media wants from you in those situations, and you can give it
But
to
they're
them.
two folks, nothing against other folks, two folks with great intelligence, very mature, I think, in many ways.
Doc and Cora.
And Cora.
I agree.
Yeah. And two guys coming from very interesting backgrounds that
That's right.
we didn't see much of back in the
No,
old days, did
no, not at all. I remember Doc Rivers played in the Boston Shootout in the mid '70s, and my uncle was a very famous high school basketball coach. And I'll never forget him coming home and saying, "I saw this kid play a brand of basketball in the Boston Shootout that I have never seen before, and I may never see again." And it was before Doc
That
blew
was
his knee
Doc.
out. Yeah, it was
That was
Doc, and then Doc had an injury to his knee, but he was Darryl Griff. Doc Rivers played above the rim before a lot of these guys played above the rim.
Wow.
And but great player, and turned out to be an amazing coach.
So we haven't seen you since the dreaded Super Bowl. So, all right, tell me your view. All right, so you're watching the game, and one of our star defensive players, Malcolm Butler, is not playing. What is your view about what went down that day?
Look, I have a confession to make here. I'm a very, very strong Red Sox fan. It's not that I'm not concerned or interested in what the Patriots are doing, but maybe it's me and my generation, but the baseball thing is so. I'm a fan, and I want them to win.
But you watched the game.
Yeah.
Does it? All right, so, and you know the whole
Yeah,
backstory.
yeah.
So does it compare to you to the whole Gray Little situation in 2003? Does it have that feeling to you?
Nah.
You know what I mean?
When he took Pedro out?
When he took Pedro out,
What he didn't.
when he didn't take Pedro out, right?
I remember that one, because Kitty and I flew to Philadelphia and then rented a car to go to State College, where she went to college, at Penn State.
Yeah.
And we were listening to the game on the radio.
It's amazing you kept the car on the road.
And I think we got there at about the time that Pedro was
Yeah.
Was,
in
They
those-
brought him back
yeah,
out.
was having his problems.
And I couldn't believe it. I said, tell me the guy's, he's a fabulous athlete, he's a great pitcher, but I think this is not the time to bring him back.
Right? Especially when he's in the dugout shaking hands with all the players. thinking-
Pointing up to the sky like he's all done. Thanks, big guy.
It was like keeping Buckner in.
Oh my God! Yeah.
I mean, we had Stapleton. He was one of the best defensive first basemen around.
That was
all you
brutal.
had to do was put him in.
And you could see Buckner he had arthritic
The
knees
poor
and could
guy
barely bend.
could barely walk,
Yeah.
let alone run.
And the 5 games prior, they had put Stapleton in for defensive purposes during that
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
But McNamara wanted Buckner to be there to
back.
celebrate. No, he wanted him to
I think
celebrate
he wanted him to be
on the field
when they,
when
I think
they
that's
won.
right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some folks, they get brain lock in those situations. And
I kind
they
of get
can't-
that a little bit.
I know, but it cost us a lot of years. And a lot of people passed away from 86 to 94.
And I can't say a bad thing about John McNamara. I've told you the story about me in spring training.
No.
No.
I told that story.
No.
During the presidential campaign.
No, you did
No.
not.
So I'm running for the presidency, right? And we've got this planned trip in March, right in the middle of the primary season, to Florida, an important primary state. needless to
I've
say, which
heard,
I wanna
yeah.
win, right? And so I said to my folks, I said, look, I'll do anything you guys want me to do, but I want you to set aside 2 hours from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to Winter Haven to do what every Boston kid, every Massachusetts kid dreams of and can't because we're in school, and that is go to spring training. You can't do that. We got a million things planned and so forth.
Sure.
And, you know, we had all kinds of press. I said, well, you guys may not be aware of it, but there are 7 gazillion people in this country who love baseball. I happen to be one of them. And who knows, we might even get a little press if I show up.
Yeah.
In any event, I'm going there from 8 until 10. So I arrive in Winter Haven, gorgeous day, 80 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. And the stands are full of these snowbirds, you know, who are there.
Sure.
And McNamara comes up to me, and in those days you still campaigned in a shirt and a tie and a jacket. And he says to me, you want to hit? Now, I don't know whether somebody told him that I was one of the catchers for the Democratic team back when the Republicans and the Democrats used to play at Fenway. But anyway, I said, yeah, sure. So I took out my jacket, grabbed a bat, hadn't swung a bat in about 5 years. And I walk up to the plate, and there's some guy in the stands, who I assume was a New Hampshire Republican or something, who says in this very loud voice, that guy couldn't hit a giraffe in the ass with a base fist. So I kind of waved to him. And I went up and, you know, I took my cuts and hit the ball
Yeah.
fairly well. Big, nice response. all
Good
kinds of
photo
applause.
op. Now that you
Yeah,
mention
right,
it, I kind of
right.
remember, yeah.
So I take my cuts, I go back, and there's this swarm of reporters and TV cameras and so on and so forth on the sideline. And I have a little press conference. And of course, it's all over the TVs. And that following week in Sports Illustrated, the inside front page, is a full color photograph of a guy with a 1 on the back of, you know, this Red Sox shirt that McNamara. And it says, who is this guy?
No
and they
kidding.
point out it's the Democratic candidate, one of the Democratic candidates running for president.
That's great.
So I called up my headquarters and I said, go out and buy 150 copies. I just got you about $50 million worth of publicity.
You sure did.
There's a full color photograph of your candidate back to the camera, surrounded by reporters.
Oh my God!
So
the
John
inside front
John
page.
McNamara did you a solid back then.
Indeed,
That
he
was
did.
a good one.
Indeed, he did.
Yeah.
Well, he owes
Another
us.
great memory. And years later, I spoke at the San Diego City Club, and they gave me a framed picture of this. with a little title, still number one
Yeah.
Oh, that's
in
great.
San Diego.
That's great. That's
All right,
great.
so we have to talk a little politics because we're here with
Okay.
Governor Michael Dukakis. So I ask a lot of people this, and I always ask these guys, is it worse than you thought?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Trump won, people said to me, "What do you think?" I said, "Look, he's a New Yorker. I'm sure he's a social liberal. He's probably a strong environmentalist and so forth. I mean, I think it's going to be okay." In any event, I said, he had nice things to say about me in 1988
Right?
because they asked him. And he said, "Well, Trump," he said, "Bush is okay, but he said, I like this." He said, "I like this guy, Dukakis." That's a direct quote from
Right.
Donald Trump. I was very wrong.
Right.
This guy is beyond belief.
What do you think happens from here? Do you think that the Democrats take back the House and
Well,
Senate?
we will see. But if you don't like Trump, and needless to say, I don't like Trump, but a lot of people don't like Trump, the way to beat him is to beat him.
Well,
politically.
you
And-
said, Governor, and it was prophetic before the election that this was a ground game. You know, you said
Yeah.
the Democrats will
Yeah.
win if they go out and they organize in the ground, and it's
Yeah.
going to be all about the ground game.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the
We didn't
Democrats
do-
did not
we didn't do the ground
what they
game.
needed to do there.
Stayed in their ivory tower.
Do you
and that was
see
it.
Well-
going into these midterms that it's energized enough, and are the Democrats doing enough on the ground
Well,
to get
look,
folks
I
to
don't know
vote?
any more than you guys do
Yeah.
in terms of reports and stuff. The sense I have is that the intensity is on the Democratic side.
Right.
And there's an enormous amount of grassroots work going
Yeah.
on. And you've got many more women who are candidates and all
Sure.
this kind of stuff. And we'll see. We'll see.
I think there's a lot of people that didn't contribute to campaigns in the past that are now giving $10, $20 here and there to make sure that it's
Maybe
a
so.
Democratic.
But it
ticket.
is all about the ground game.
And it's hard to tell from our vantage point here in Massachusetts how things are in Iowa, or Nebraska, Minnesota. That, here the Democrats were slam dunk.
But are you
Elsewhere,
fearful of how quickly people's votes can be swayed, like 1 or 2 days before the election? They can be influenced more than ever. it seems?
There were a lot of things going on during the campaign. I don't mean in terms of the campaign itself, but you can't write off half the country with this red-blue nonsense
Right.
and expect to win elections. I'm sorry. You can't say, well, we don't care about you guys. I mean, I carried West Virginia by 12 percentage points. There was virtually no Democratic campaigning in West Virginia.
Right.
What is West Virginia doing voting for Trump,
Right.
Right.
who doesn't give two hoots about the people of West Virginia, if the truth be known?
Right. Yeah.
But you can't neglect these folks. You can't say, well, you're blue, we're not interested. Because you end up, Scott, with about 7 real contests in the end because
Right.
of this crazy electoral college of ours. And that means that right-wing folks can pour huge amounts of money into those 7 states.
Right.
And that's exactly what
Do you, as you start to look at 2020, one argument can be made that the Democrats have to be very careful about, nominating someone who's too liberal or too blue. Do the Democrats need a Clinton, in order to get to start to appeal to some of the folks in these red counties who don't feel like these candidates?
I
speak
don't
for them?
understand this whole thing. Look, these are working Americans. They're working hard. They have not done well. I mean, if you look at income growth in this country,
Yeah.
it's all in the top 10, 15%.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the real income of the vast majority of Americans hasn't gone up a nickel in the last 20 or 25 years. It isn't just the last 2 or 3 years. And they should be our people.
Right, of course.
They're voting against their best interests.
Well, but that's because
You're not giving them a
the
candidate.
Democrats
you're not
aren't
giving
them a
lighting
sense of
them
what.
up. It's
I mean,
amazing.
for example, a guy named Kennedy ran for the presidency in 1960, right?
Yeah.
What was he talking about? Bringing back Appalachia,
Right.
investing in these distressed parts of the country.
Right.
And people responded. Are we talking about investing
No,
in regional
we're not.
development? I don't hear this.
Yeah.
And some of the other things, look, making sure that working Americans and their families have decent, affordable health care, I think is a hugely important thing. And in this case, we're seeing Democrats do that. But
Yeah.
where's the Where's the economic stuff? And we know, based on what happened here, that you can make a difference.
Right.
Because the state I inherited in 1975 was a basket case economically. And today, you know, everybody says we're doing this, that, and the other thing, great stuff. That didn't happen by accident. But I want to be a member of a party that goes out there and says to folks in Ohio, in West Virginia,
Yeah.
all over the country, hey, we care about you. And we're going to do something about it. And we're going to be serious about it. I'm not hearing it as much of that as I would like to hear. And I don't think this is left or right or whatever. What are we talking about? Decent, affordable health care for working people. Investing in job-creating development. Dealing with climate change, which people care about big time. These are not, what is this?
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
You know, where
investing in
Yeah.
infrastructure instead of, you know, spending trillions on weapons of war that just seem to be getting us into trouble all the time.
I'm Scott Kerman. Have a great and happy night. The elephants are in town.
Here comes the circus.